Let's preview this year's free agent defensive line class, and there's going to be a mixture of edge guys, three technique guys. Don't worry about it, okay? We're just going off a spot track. So if you see an edge rusher, for instance, that's not listed here, don't worry. We're going to cover him in the linebackers video. So go ahead and give a comment if you want me to go ahead and tag you in that. Starting off with DeMarcus Lawrence. DeMarcus Lawrence, funny enough, was brought in 2014 to replace no other than DeMarcus Ware. DeMarcus Ware, obviously the Hall of Famer for the Cowboys, then Broncos. DeMarcus Lawrence hasn't been quite that good, but he's been pretty darn good. The sacks haven't always come, but he's been a consistent thorn in quarterback side. If Dallas can, this would be an ideal guy to bring back opposite of Micah Parsons. With that said, maybe they go younger. They need a wide receiver. Their offensive line is not the same offensive line. We covered that Rico Dowdle is a free agent, so they need a running back. What else? They need interior defensive line. God knows that they need interior defensive line. They would kill for B.J. Hill, for instance. There's all kinds of needs, so it'll be interesting. We know that the Cowboys care more about creating a media circus than they do winning games. And I don't say that to hate on the Cowboys. I say that to state a fact. Jerry Jones, in his eyes, wins a Super Bowl each and every year when you see how much money he brings in. He's cheap. He's short-sighted. Evidence to see how he handled the Prescott and CeeDee Lamb contracts, how he's currently handling the Micah Parsons contract. You want to go back in time, how he handled the Ezekiel Elliott contract, okay? It is what it is. Josh Sweat, it's going to be interesting to see what Philly does with him. Probably in both teams' eyes, but both parties' eyes, to part ways is the better way to go. Philly has Bryce Huff, who couldn't find his way onto the field. Nolan Smith, I'm still waiting to break out. Brandon Graham, I think he'll be on here, maybe the linebackers. Still waiting to see what he can do. And then Jalix Hunt, this year's third rounder, Howie Roseman's diamond in the rough. Josh Sweat can probably earn more money elsewhere. Philly can start to transition to their younger guys. Maybe bring in another guy on a bargain deal. Josh Sweat has been very good for the Eagles, but it might just be time to mutually part ways. B.J. Hill, former Giant, now Bengal, pretty good player. And the Bengals are cheap, so I'm going to assume that they will not bring back B.J. Hill. Maybe he winds up in Indianapolis playing alongside DeForest Buckner. Chase Young, what happened? It'll be interesting because Chase Young probably he wasn't great, but he was good enough where he could probably match that like $8.5 million on a short-term deal this year. It'll be interesting to see where exactly he goes. I wouldn't be surprised if he does go to a team that isn't necessarily clamoring for his services, but it's a good fit. Does he go to a Philadelphia Eagles with Vic Fangio? Obviously, the clip of him when he was a rookie with the Steelers. I get it. The Steelers are super deep at edge rusher right now. Alex Highsmith, TJ, of course, and then Nick Herbig's a bona fide stud. But I don't know, that's something to look for. Alex Highsmith's name was kind of floated out in trade conversation last year around the Ayuk stuff. Maybe you bring in Chase Young. You still have edge rusher as a strength of the team then with Chase Young, Herbig, and Watt. It'll be interesting to see. Watt's also entering the last year of his contract, and it seems like a foregone conclusion that he's going to re-up in Pittsburgh, but who knows. Charles Omenihu, solid edge rusher who's going to be paid. As you can see, that number's going to go up. That number's going to be at 10 plus million, which is ridiculous to me, but that's free agency and one of the reasons why I don't like it. Jaron Reed will be interesting. He left the Seahawks, came back to the Seahawks, and played some of his best football. Dietrich Wise, long-time Patriot. He kind of knows the way things are supposed to look. He was there still during the Tom Brady era. Maybe Mike Vrabel decides to keep him around, keep some continuance in the locker room. Who knows? Maybe he wants a fresh start. Marcus Davenport, another just athletic freak who's never done anything. But he'll still get paid. As you can see, he got paid pretty handsomely last year. Probably won't match that number, but he'll be up there. We got Brandon Graham. I know Brandon Graham's retiring, but guess what? He hasn't announced his retirement yet, which leads me to believe that he's thinking about coming back and running it back for another year. And I love old guys coming back for another year, so I hope that happens. Javon Kinlaw, he played really well for the Jets, to be honest. A guy who didn't pan out as the first round pick in San Francisco. Sebastian Joseph Day, he's bounced around Niners, Titans, Rams. The Rams, I think, should start to try and do what the Patriots did, what the Chiefs have started to do, and that is bring back guys who were contributors on their team now that they're a little bit older, now that they might care a little bit more about winning than the pocket. Sebastian Joseph Day, you bring him in with Kobe Turner and Braden Fisk, that becomes a very deep room. I would like that. Cleveland Farrell, he was overshadowed. He wasn't as good as the other first round bust, top 4 pick bust that just was amazing this year for Washington and Dante Fowler, but he was solid as well. He's going to be able to get a little bit of a raise from that under $4 million that he was making. Morgan Fox, I've always had a fascination with him. I don't know. I like him. Greg Gaines, Rams, another former Ram defensive lineman. Why is my face so big? I don't know why it keeps doing that. Dante Fowler, we just talked about him. It'll be interesting. Do teams believe that Dante Fowler has finally found his talent? He had his second ever double-digit sack season. His first came, guess who? The Rams. He got it across from, who was the edge rusher that he got it across from? Aaron Donald was obviously there. It was Von Miller. Leonard Floyd ended up replacing him. I forget. I'm disappointed in myself. You also got Emmanuel Ogbah down there. Another guy who, hey, if you can't get Charles Omenihu if you're the Chiefs, I would bring back Emmanuel Ogbah for cheap. All right, we shrunk my face. Another former 49er who played some of his best football in New York. Solomon Thomas. Tashawn Warden, another defensive lineman for the Chiefs heading free agency. Jerry Hughes continues to just keep on kicking. Who knows? Maybe he goes back to Buffalo for a little bit of a swan song. Try and get them a ring. Linval Joseph, remember when I was talking about the Cowboys trying to find interior D-line help and just signing anybody under the moon? Linval Joseph was one of those guys. Continuing on, Jonathan Hankins, another former Cowboy who just could not really shore up that interior defensive line. Who else we got? Derek Barnett. He wanted his trade from Philly because he wasn't playing enough. He was a little bit of a disappointment. He broke all of, I believe it was Reggie White's records at Tennessee. He didn't really become anything in the NFL. Maybe he goes back to Philly. I don't know. You got to look for some of these connections, and not all connections are good connections. You have to remember that. Calais Campbell. Sign me up for another year of Calais Campbell. Hall of Famer. Love it. Keep on playing, old man. I love it. Come back at 39. Milton Williams, one of the heroes from the Super Bowl. He's earned himself a nice payday. He's just been trapped behind some great interior defensive linemen for the Eagles. Obviously, right now you have the Georgia guys and Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter. You had Fletcher Cox. You had Javon Hargrave. There's just always been somebody else that he's been behind. Wouldn't be surprised if he leaves and gets a nice, hefty payday. We're talking 15 per year at least. From somebody else. Joseph Asai, obviously Bengals fans remember him for the late hit on Patrick Mahomes that gave the Chiefs a pathway back to the Super Bowl. Gotta love it. Who else? Malcolm Kuntz, he had a nice year, kind of surprising for the Raiders. Gonna be interesting to see if Max Crosby wants him back. This guy, I'm not gonna try to pronounce his name. He's about to become a very rich man. Once again, good defensive lineman that's going to be paid like an elite one. All right, wrapping up here. Let's see. Eddie Goldman. I forgot that guy was still kicking. Jordan Phillips. I think he's going to have to wait a while. Some of these guys aren't going to be right away free agents. Jordan Phillips can still contribute to a team, but probably not going to sign him until summertime.